It's not fun, but these simple exercises solve 90% of your body's problems. You probably spent more than 8 hours sitting today, and tomorrow you'll do it again, and the day after that too. A study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine followed more than 92,000 adults and concluded that spending more than 10 hours a day sitting increases the risk of premature death by up to 60%, regardless of how often you go to the gym. It's not just cardiovascular health that pays the price, it's your spine, your hips, your shoulders, your neck. The body molds itself to the position you repeat most, and when that position is a chair, it begins to break down in silent and progressive ways. The problems don't appear all at once. They appear as morning stiffness that takes longer and longer to pass, as that neck pain that always comes back at the end of the day, as the feeling that your body simply no longer responds the way it used to. That's why today you'll see 8 exercises that many people may not enjoy doing. Because they aren't very popular, but they are the ones that undo what years of bad habits have built in your body. They won't make you sweat like a conventional workout. They won't impress anyone at the gym. But they are the ones that restore the real functioning of the body, and that's where the value lies. If you work sitting down, stay attentive until the end, because exercise number 5 is the most important on the list. Before we begin, please tell us through the comments your name and the city from which you are watching our content. We'd love to know. Exercise number 1, Jefferson curl. Few exercises cause as much discomfort among health professionals when mentioned as the Jefferson curl. And ironically, few exercises have as much potential to transform the spinal health of those who spend their days hunched over a desk. The Jefferson curl works the entire posterior chain, the spinal erectors, the hamstrings, the glutes, and the thoracolumbar fascia, that dense band of connective tissue that runs the full length of the back. Most people have been conditioned to never flex the spine under load, and it's precisely that fear that leaves the tissues fragile. A study by McGill and Marshall from 2012 showed that discs and connective tissues become more resistant when exposed to progressive and controlled load and flexion. In other words, protecting the spine too much from any curvature is what weakens it, not what preserves it. To perform it, stand on a secure step holding a light weight with both hands. Begin the movement from the head, then the neck, the thoracic region, and finally the lower back, descending vertebra by vertebra as if you were rolling the spine around an imaginary ball. The knees remain slightly bent throughout the movement. On the way down, take a deep breath. On the way up, perform the reverse movement with the same control and attention, segment by segment. The secret lies in never losing awareness of each part of the spine during execution. The main errors to avoid are using excessive weight before mastering the movement with body weight, descending quickly and in an uncontrolled manner, losing the vertebral sequence, and trying to stretch too far at the bottom without yet having the necessary mobility. The weight exists to create tension and awareness, not to force range of motion. Do 3 sets of 5 to 8 very slow repetitions, starting with no weight in the first weeks. When you feel safety and total control, add a very light weight, something around 1 to 2 pounds. People with a herniated disc in an acute phase or spinal stenosis should consult a physical therapist before starting. Now let's move to an exercise that directly targets the biggest silent villain for those who sit for hours. Exercise number 2, couch stretch. If there is one exercise that every person who works sitting down should do every single day without exception, it's the couch stretch. It directly targets the psoas and the rectus femoris, 2 muscles that become chronically shortened in those who spend decades in a chair. When these structures shorten, the pelvis tilts forward, the lower back enters a constant state of hyperlordosis, and the glutes simply stop functioning as they should. It's a silent cascade of dysfunctions. A study from the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy from 2016 identified shortening of the iliacus and rectus femoris as one of the main predictors of lower back pain in adults over 50. It's no coincidence. To perform it, kneel with your back to a couch or wall. Rest the shin and the top of the foot of the back leg vertically on the seat, while the other leg goes forward with the knee at 90 degrees. The torso must remain upright without leaning forward, And here's the tip that changes everything. Actively squeeze the glute of the back leg the entire time you are in the position. Without that contraction, the stretch loses more than half its effectiveness because the psoas doesn't receive the signal it needs to relax. The most common mistake is letting the torso fall forward in an attempt to feel more of the stretch. This removes the tension from where it needs to be and overloads the knee. Another frequent mistake is neglecting the glute contraction, turning the exercise into a passive stretch of limited effectiveness. There is also a third, less obvious mistake: holding for too little time. 30 seconds is not enough to create real change in the length of myofascial tissue. The nervous system needs time to understand that the position is safe and release the reflexive tension. Less than 2 minutes per side is, in practice, almost as if you hadn't done the exercise at all. Hold for 2 to 3 minutes per side, breathing slowly and in a controlled manner. Acute pain in the knee can be relieved by placing a folded mat under it. For people with severe knee problems or recent hip replacement, it is advisable to consult a professional beforehand. Exercise number 3, elevated feet glute bridge. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and most people can't even activate it correctly. Years of sedentary behavior create a phenomenon that researchers call glute amnesia. The muscle is there, but the nervous system simply stops recruiting it efficiently. The result is a lower back that works alone in movements that should be driven by the glutes, and that's where the pain begins. The glute bridge with feet elevated against the wall is one of the most effective corrections for this. With the feet supported vertically at 90 degrees, the hamstring muscles are at a mechanical disadvantage and the glutes are forced to take center stage. A study by Contreras and collaborators from 2015, published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, demonstrated that this variation generates significantly greater electromyographic activation in the gluteus maximus than the traditional bridge performed on the floor. Lie on your back, place your feet against the wall with your knees at 90 degrees, and lift your hips until they form a straight line from your knees to your shoulders. Hold for 2 to 3 seconds at the highest point before lowering with control. A practical tip: place your hands on your glutes during the first repetitions. If they are soft at the top of the movement, the lower back is compensating. The glute should be as hard as a rock. The most common mistakes are lifting the hips too high, creating hyperlordosis at the top, and descending quickly without controlling the eccentric phase. Remember that the descent phase represents a training opportunity just as valuable as the ascent. Do 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions. People with a recent hip replacement should exercise caution and obtain medical clearance before starting. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Having constant access to science-based information is what will help you progress with health over the long term in the world of exercise. Exercise number 4, dead bug. The name sounds strange, but the dead bug is possibly the most intelligent core exercise on this list. While the traditional crunch trains the core as a spinal flexor, the dead bug trains it as a stabilizer, which is exactly how it functions in real life. When you carry a bag, when you pick something up off the floor, when you simply walk, the core is not flexing the spine. It is preventing it from moving when it shouldn't. That's the function the dead bug develops, and that's exactly the function that disappears in those who spend years sedentary. Lie on your back with your arms pointing toward the ceiling and your knees bent at 90 degrees in the air. Keeping the lower back completely pressed into the floor, slowly extend your right arm above your head while extending your left leg toward the floor without touching it. Return to the starting position and repeat on the opposite side. The movement must be slow, absolutely controlled, and without any rush. The lower back must not lift off the floor at any moment. If it does, the exercise has lost its purpose and the wrong musculature is being recruited. That is the only mistake that matters in this exercise, but it is also the most frequent one. Reduce the range of motion as many times as necessary to maintain full contact of the lower back with the floor. A practical tip to check this is to place your hand under the lower back before starting. Feel the space. During the movement, that space must not grow. If it does, you've lost control. Start with small movements and gradually increase the range of motion only when control is fully established. Do 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions per side. The dead bug is one of the safest exercises in the world for those with a history of lower back pain, being frequently prescribed in rehabilitation. Protocols. There are no relevant contraindications for the general adult population. Exercise number 5, Child's Pose. We have arrived at exercise number 5, which we promised would be the most important on the list for those who work sitting down. And the reason is not the stretch itself, which would already be sufficient to justify it. The reason is what happens when you perform it with the correct breathing. Child's Pose works the posterior chain, the spinal erectors, the glutes, and the latissimus dorsi, offering a passive decompression of the lower back that most exercises simply cannot replicate. But the key that transforms this stretch into a truly therapeutic exercise lies in the breathing. On your knees with your hips moving back, towards your heels and your arms extended in front of you with your forehead resting on the floor, you breathe by expanding the ribcage laterally and toward the back, not by lifting the chest. This activates the diaphragm in a way that shallow breathing never reaches. And here is what most people ignore. A diaphragm that doesn't function well sabotages all core stability. The diaphragm is the ceiling of the core. When it works poorly, all of the intra-abdominal pressure that protects the spine becomes compromised. People who breathe shallowly all day, which is the majority of those who work in an office, have this mechanism dysfunctional without even knowing it. Hold for 2 to 3 minutes per session, taking 8 to 10 deep and slow breaths. Feel the ribcage expand to the sides and toward the back with each inhalation. A useful variation is to alternate between arms extended in front and arms positioned along the body with the palms facing up. The second position opens the thoracic region in a different way, and many people report an immediate feeling of relief in the middle of the back. People with severe knee problems may have difficulty maintaining the position, and a folded mat placed between the knees and heels resolves this in most cases. Exercise number 6, 90-90 hip mobility. Hip rotation is one of the first capacities to disappear with a sedentary lifestyle, and it is also one of the most ignored in any exercise program. When the hip doesn't rotate well, the lower back and the knee take on work that isn't theirs in practically every movement you perform. From the simplest ones like getting up from a chair to the more complex ones like climbing stairs or squatting. The 90-90 is one of the few exercises that works both internal and external hip rotation actively and simultaneously. Sit on the floor with your legs forming 2 90-degree angles, one in front and one to the side. Slowly bring both legs together to the opposite side, as if you were turning a steering wheel, without using your hands for support. Pause for 2 to 3 seconds at each position, and pay attention to where the effort is coming from. The movement must come from the hip. If you feel the effort coming from the lower back twisting, reduce the range of motion and work with what the hip can move on its own. The most common mistake is using the arms as support, which transfers the effort from the hips to the upper limbs and cancels the purpose of the exercise. The second mistake is confusing lower back twisting with hip mobility, which is not only ineffective but can be injurious over time. Do 10 slow repetitions per side. Over time, as mobility improves, you can add a simple variation. At the final position on each side, try to slightly lift the back knee off the floor while maintaining the 90-degree angle. This transforms the exercise from passive mobility into active internal hip rotation work, which is even more effective for recovering lost joint function. People with a history of hip surgery or acetabular labrum injuries should avoid forced rotation and consult a physical therapist before starting. Exercise number 7, farmer's carry. The farmer's carry seems too simple to belong on a list of serious exercises. 2 weights in your hands, you walk. That's it. And it's precisely that apparent simplicity that makes it work in ways that complex exercises often cannot. It trains the trapezius, the lateral core, the deep spinal stabilizers, the grip musculature, and all the neuromuscular integration necessary to keep the body organized while it moves under load. For those over 50, this aspect of integrated training is especially valuable because it's how real life works. Not muscle by muscle, but the entire body responding together to a challenge. Pick up 2 weights that represent a real challenge for you. If you can have a normal conversation without any effort during the walk, the weight is too light. Keep your shoulders back and down, your core activated, your spine in a neutral position, and walk with short and controlled steps. The head stays upright, the gaze forward. Without tilting to the sides, without letting the shoulders rise toward the ears. The main mistakes are using weight that is too light, which turns the exercise into a stroll with no real stimulus, and letting the shoulders elevate and the trunk stabilizers lose tension throughout the walk. When that happens, it's a sign that the weight is too heavy or that the volume has gone too far. A third common mistake is taking very wide steps in an attempt to cover more distance, which creates lateral instability and takes attention away from the stabilizing musculature. Short and controlled steps are always superior to long and hurried ones, especially when the goal is to keep the spine organized under load. Do 4 passes of 20 to 30 meters. There are no relevant contraindications for the general population, but people with wrist tendinitis or severe grip problems can use lifting straps to continue benefiting from the exercise. Exercise number 8, dead hang. The dead hang is perhaps the most underestimated exercise on this list. You do nothing but hang from a bar, and it's precisely that nothing that makes it so powerful. Years of sitting posture compress the intervertebral discs, shorten the latissimus dorsi, and create accumulated stiffness throughout the lateral chain of the body that expresses itself as pain, limited movement, and a constant feeling of tension. The dead hang uses gravity to reverse this process passively and progressively. A study by Sabo and collaborators from 2019, published in the European Spine Journal, a prestigious peer-reviewed medical journal dedicated to orthopedics in all aspects of the human spine, documented a measurable reduction in disc compression after regular sessions of passive spinal traction, which is essentially what the dead hang promotes. In addition, it mobilizes the shoulders in a way that no other exercise on this list achieves, working the elevation range of the glenohumeral joint and the passive lengthening of all the musculature that sedentary behavior and hunched posture shorten. To perform it, grip a bar with both hands at shoulder width, palms facing forward. When gripping, consciously relax the shoulders, letting them rise toward the ears instead of forcing them down. Let the weight of the body do the work. Breathe slowly and steadily. The most common mistake is trying to keep the shoulders active and compressed during the hang, which eliminates precisely the decompression benefit we are seeking. The second mistake is progressing too quickly in time without the tendons of the forearm and hand being adapted. Start with 20 to 30 seconds per set and gradually increase over the weeks until reaching 60 seconds. Do 3 sets with sufficient rest between them. People with shoulder impingement syndrome in an acute phase or a rotator cuff injury should progress very gradually, and if there is pain, stop and seek professional guidance. If you enjoyed this and want to discover another exercise widely practiced in communities across Asia to undo years of neglect toward one's own body, we've left a video appearing right now on the screen showing each of them in greater detail. Don't miss it! Thank you for watching until the end, and God bless you, my friend.